minimalism is about deprivation. It's about sacrifice. It's about going without because, minimalists are martyrs or whatever it is. That's not accurate. Minimalism is about quality over quantity. It's about curation. Minimalists like stuff. We're just conscious and intentional about the stuff we choose to bring into our homes.
Welcome to Everyone's Talking Money, where we get brutally honest about money, mindset, and making life richer. Stephanie, we just went deep on why your bank account balance should never define your value as a human. While money doesn't equal your worth, it is a tool you can use to live lighter and freer. So let's just crack this open from the minimalist angle. When someone embraces minimalism, what helps them feel more aligned with their values and less tangled up in mindless spending or capitalism's hamster wheel?
Yeah. Well, I would say the obvious first and foremost, right? Which is when we are on the consumerist hamster wheel of buying, we obviously have to first work so that we can have the funds to buy all the things. So a minimalist life, first and foremost, untangles you from the need to work unnecessarily. Because, once our basic needs are met, a lot of the times we're working to support a lifestyle that's been marketed to us, not one that perhaps we want or we're ever looking for.
Right. I mean, you get the job to pay for the things, and then things become more expensive, and then you need more things, then you need the bigger job, better job, higher paying job to continue paying for all of these things. So it really does just keep you on that hamster wheel. It's just are we working to just pay for the things? There's some there's all kinds of things floating around on Instagram, but it's like, driving the car with the big payment to the job that takes you away from your home 50 hours a week and you're doing it for that, or to pay for the mortgage for the home you're never in because you're working so hard to pay the mortgage. And you can see once you take a step back, it's like, oh, wow, how much of that is true of my life if you look at it from that angle. You've built a whole movement around incremental minimalism. So what does that mean to you, and why is slow and steady so important for people who feel buried in stuff?
Well, I'll start by saying that I consider myself a zero to Oprah type person. Like in general, just in anything in life, I am either black or white. Yes, I'm doing it. And if I'm doing it, I'm all in, or no, I'm not doing it at all. Like that's just my personality. But I have learned through 41 years on this planet that zero to Oprah living isn't always the best choice in all situations. And that's why I advocate for incremental minimalism, because I feel as though going from, overconsumption, which is what the majority of Americans have been trained to strive for, over not just consumption, but excessive consumption, going from that to minimalism, getting rid of everything that's non-essential, that's a big jump. And so incremental minimalism is about just step one, looking at the things, the items that you've brought into your home that you've acquired, and asking yourself, are these items adding to my life? Are they adding to, my and your family's well-being in a tangible, meaningful way? Or could they possibly, and incremental minimalism is about asking, could they possibly be detracting from my life and well-being in some way, shape, or form? And for me, and for a lot of my listeners on my own podcast, the answer is yes. This stuff, the sheer amount of it, and also the striving for it, the working 50 hours a week to get out of the hole of debt that I find myself in because I overbought all the things that were marketed to me. Yes, the stuff is detracting from quality of life, from meaningful moments, from time spent with loved ones, from enjoyment. And if that's the answer that your listeners, as they ask themselves that question, come to, I would say step two would be then to start thinking about the role of stuff in your life, and why there's that knee-jerk preponderance to keep up with the Joneses and buy the stuff. That would be step two, and step two is way harder than step one.
So I can think of a couple ways right now how stuff has a negative influence on my life. One, just it's something else to manage. When I walk into every room, I have 4 children, something's always a mess. There's always something in the room that doesn't belong there, right? We're pulling stuff from every room because this is the room we decided to play in today. So toys are everywhere, things are everywhere. Um, but not even just with the kids stuff, like with stuff around my house, all my extra pillows or whatever it is, it's heavy. And it's just when I'm done working for the day and I walk in, it's like, this is something else I need to do now, right? Because I don't feel relaxed until it's straightened up. So it's almost like, well, that's how the less stuff could help me, is to just take some of the load off. So what do you find people say of this is why I'm moving into this movement. I'm starting the minimalist journey, or what are some of the reasons and why is it so heavy? What are the things that are heavy on us?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just share my own story quickly, because my story mimics your story, echoes the story I've heard from thousands of women. And the story's all the same, which is um, the stuff adds to the mental load. And our mental loads, everybody's, but in this case, women's in particular, they're already heavy. We don't need anything else on our mental loads. And so for me, I'll just say I never really thought about stuff or consumption or even environmental issues, or even how buying stuff related to my finances in any meaningful way. I didn't think about any of that until I had my daughter, my first daughter. And once I became a mother, well, for the mothers listening, infants are really a full time job. I did not know how to take care of an infant. I had no free time. And the seconds that I could, pick up here or there were spent picking up stuff. My daughter, again, she's like a couple months old. She had the best wardrobe. She had a closet lined with like fancy frilly dresses. She had every toy, every enrichment toy, known to man. Uh, but again, my family and friends, they were lovely. They bought all the things. So nice of them. But my free time was spent in my 850 square foot apartment managing the stuff, finding places to put the stuff, taking care of the stuff, washing the stuff, maintaining the stuff. And I just had a moment where I thought to myself, let's work smarter, not harder. Like, let's be real with ourselves. My infant daughter does not care about the clothes she's wearing. It's zip up onesies all day long. It doesn't matter if it's stained. She does not need these frilly dresses. She does not need these fancy enrichment toys, because what would she rather do? She'd rather snuggle. She'd rather be in her swing. And that opened up a means of thinking in which I thought, well, if all of this baby stuff is frivolous, does that also mean that some of the stuff that I'm buying for my 30-something-year-old self is also frivolous? And so then I started looking around at my own stuff. Oh, I bought this shirt because it's in style, not because it looks good on me, not because I necessarily like it, but because it was marketed to me. And after I started having those thoughts for a while, again, this is where the incremental thing comes into play. It wasn't a one morning I just woke up and completely changed the way I think about stuff. It was incremental. But later along the line, I thought about, well, if this stuff is impacting my mental load, impacting my finances, impacting my free time and my happiness levels, is it also, and this is a big part of, my platform, I'll just mention, like, what is this doing to the planet? What is all this stuff that we're just mindlessly buying because we're told to buy it, doing to the resources, the finite resources that our planet has? And where is this stuff going? When when we're done with it. So I think that's a really long way of saying the stuff a lot of times is benefiting the manufacturers, the corporations marketing it to us, but it might not be benefiting you and I.
That's very powerful, and I feel that, and I can see that because very similar, after a baby shower, a whole room was full of all this stuff, and it's like, how does this one human need all of these things? And there's a reason for all of them, but right, when your day comes, when your little bit of free time that we have comes to managing the stuff we have, then is it really free time after all? Who's controlling your time? Just like who's controlling your money? Is your money controlling you, or are you controlling it? Is your stuff controlling you, or are you controlling it? And I think we can apply that kind of train of thought to so many different areas of our life of, are you taking control of it, or is it controlling you? And we're a similar age, and we established before in your show that the geriatric millennial, which I will not buy into I will not buy into that at all. So I just keep beating the drum of elder millennial. I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm at least beating that drum. But I almost feel like we were trained to spend money. If you think about like remember all those questionnaires we would fill out like about ourselves and what are your hobbies? Shopping was always listed as a hobby. Like we were told, you go to the mall, you hang out at the mall, you shop. That's what's fun. It was like we buy the Forever 21, the one or two or three time use clothing, and then you throw it away. It was almost like we were trained to become these mass consumers of stuff.
I'll take that a step further. I 100% agree with all of it. But I think it's actually more insidious than even that. Marketing is expertly designed to niggle in and find our insecurities, bring them out into the light, and amplify them so that then we're trained to buy a thing to fill the insecurity that marketing originally created. And in this era, I mean, you and I did not grow up with targeted ads, algorithms, but in this era in which the algorithm knows more about you and me than perhaps we know about ourselves consciously, it's a scary thing. It's a scary time to be a consumer, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, the algorithm is real. It works. It
Mm.
My friends and I'll joke if we're talking about something, it's like just say it loud enough near your phone and it's going to show up in your algorithm at some point. So it's definitely there, and it preys on the insecurities of and to get you to buy something to fill that void. But instead of getting, you're calling out the marketers or you're calling out the algorithm, but then sometimes I think it seems like people get mad at money instead of getting upset with the algorithm, right? They'll get mad at the money. And why do you think that is it because we don't know, we're well, how could the algorithm do this to us? It must be easier to just blame the money.
So that's a great question. And this is something that, I've been thinking about and need to continue thinking about. Money is the currency, right? Money is not the problem. However, money becomes, in so many of our minds, the problem. I mean, the only reason that marketing works is because they're taking our money, right? They're taking the currency. And so I'm not sure if I have a great answer for you. I would say that it's easier to malign this nameless, faceless thing that can't fight back than it is to fight the institution, let's say, that not only puts the currency, the tool, the money on the pedestal, but also, takes it from us without our even knowing. So again, not a great answer, but you're right. The money is just the currency. The money itself fundamentally is not the problem. The money is twisted and turned and like I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your show, but bastardized into the problem in a capitalist society, for better or for worse.
And so many of us are attached to our things emotionally. You mentioned all of your daughter's clothes when she was a baby, and you can then look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, that dress, she was so cute when she wore it," or, or gifts from family members, or something that, well, when I made it, or when I got my first big girl paycheck, I purchased this. How do we start untangling our identity from our possessions? Because I think that's what part of the problem is that our identity is tangled in our possessions, then it's harder to get rid of if that's part of us.
Yes. Well, I think what you're talking about there is the very human tendency to infuse emotion into stuff, right? It's not just a onesie. It's the onesie I brought my daughter home from the hospital in. And when you think of it that way, with that emotion attached, it's really hard to get rid of that onesie. I still have that onesie personally. Uh, but for me, what really worked was in remembering utility. So every item in our homes has a fundamental purpose for existing. The chair I'm sitting in is meant to be sat on. That's why it was created. The candle that I have in my home is used to provide light when the power goes out and maybe a little bit of ambiance. The cup in my cabinet is used to hold water. When I remember utility, and I remember that utility is first and foremost, the emotional side, the you know, the emotion, the memory, the sentiment, that all gets pushed to the back burner. And so I find for myself, it's really easy to detach from stuff when I remember utility first. Okay, this onesie is meant to keep my daughter warm. Uh, it's the love I have for my daughter is not love for the onesie. They're two separate things. My daughter and the onesie are two separate things. And so I think it just really comes down to an awareness that uh, emotions and stuff are different. And in certain situations, it's lovely and great to combine them, especially if we have sentimental items like items from deceased loved ones. That's great to a point. It's great to keep your grandmother's vase that she gave you. It's not so great to keep every single thing your grandmother ever unloaded onto you out of a sense, an emotion of guilt or missing. And so I think the line is different for every person. But for me, the line is remembering that stuff exists to serve a purpose. My grandmother's china is to serve food. It's not to help me remember my grandmother because I have plenty of pictures and plenty of memories for which to do that.
And I think we can say the same thing for money, right? We're attaching our emotions to this stuff, and we have to remember what its purpose is. And similarly for money, we attach our emotions to our money, but we have to remember what its purpose is to help us achieve things. And I think that minimalism, I love talking about minimalism and this concept and money because I think there's so many parallels. It's such a similar, we can replace minimalism and stuff with money almost interchangeably. And I just find that so fascinating. But just the same way our stuff can drain our mental energy. And if you can talk about that for a minute, what have you noticed between the then incremental shifts and improving our physical environment by removing some of our stuff and the mental health?
Yeah, I'll say for myself. So, in my conventional heterosexual marriage, I continue to be the one who is in charge of household maintenance for worse, not for better, for worse, just for worse. We're working on it in our house, but like many homes, traditional gender roles prevail, and I am responsible for the lion's share of the housework. And so the clutter the excess stuff tends to weigh on me most because I'm responsible for it. And so simply being more intentional about not only what we choose to keep, but more importantly, what we choose to allow into our home uh, has done a great deal to, again, reduce that mental load. When there's less stuff, when there's less clothes to wash, when there's less laundry, there's less of a mental load. It's just, simple math at the end of the day. Um, and I'll say too, bringing this back to finances, it's not about it's not about like buying less stuff or decluttering stuff so that you can then go to the mall and buy more stuff. Like that's not what minimalism is for me, and I feel like that version of minimalism is peddled again in this capitalist society that wants us to buy at every turn. It's not about decluttering your old stuff or your stuff you don't like anymore and going to get new stuff. It's about addressing the underlying issue that's pushing you to buy stuff that you don't need in the first place. And once I started to like really dig that out, that's where things started to change for me. That's where the special sauce is. Like that's where change really lies. So uh why do I feel like I need a new couch to uh have friends over? Why do I feel like I need to redo my living room before I have a dinner party? Um, and I think that comes back again to keeping up with the Joneses, addressing an insecurity inside of me. And while we are taught in a capitalist society to just upgrade, just, put it on the credit card and pay it next month and, no harm, no foul. When I realize again, utility, a couch is really just meant to be sat on, right? A couch is not meant or supposed to be made to impress friends. A couch is meant to be sat on, and I already have a perfectly decent couch for which we can all sit on. That's really the untangling my needs from consumption. Really starts to happen at a rapid pace.
So you already alluded to this, that like minimalism doesn't mean just like decluttering and getting rid of stuff. It's a mindset shift almost, and retraining your brain as to taking control of your surroundings, how your money's spent, where you choose to put your dollars, and talking with your money. What are some of the other myths about minimalism you wish more people understood?
I like that question. Well, I'll say first and foremost, minimalism is different to different people. It depends on who you talk to, right? If you had Marie Kondo on your show, she would be peddling her online store with tuning forks and this and that and other items that I would consider to be completely frivolous. So minimalism is in the eye of the beholder, let's say. For me, a myth that I would love to see uh, just gone from the face of the earth forever is that minimalism is about deprivation. It's about sacrifice. It's about going without because, minimalists are martyrs or whatever it is. That's not accurate. Minimalism is about quality over quantity. It's about curation. It's about, again, if circumstances it's about buying for life as opposed to buying for the trash can. um Minimalists like stuff, and in fact I might even say we like stuff just as much or more than everybody else. We're just conscious and intentional about the stuff we choose to bring into our homes. We're not just heading to Amazon because we had a thought that we might need a new X item sometime in the future. Minimalists are not scrolling on Instagram and seeing an ad for, I don't know, name that. I'm not into fashion all that much, clearly. But minimalists are probably not, seeing a targeted ad on social media telling them to buy the new fashion item and then just buying it. We're putting in barriers to purchasing to make sure that that item is A, built to last, B, is going to work with the other items in our closets that we already own, C, going to look good on our body, D, aligned with our values. So like we have more steps. But that doesn't mean that we're, sacrificing or martyrs or just living without.
What are some of the spending habits people can adopt to stop that cycle of overconsumption?
Oh, well, just practically speaking, number one, put up barriers to buying. In 2025, e-commerce, everything's online, credit cards are saved. uh, they have your email address, so marketers can insert themselves into your nighttime routine when you're feeling tired, when you're not feeling, when you're not making the best decisions. Um, the barriers to buying have been systematically dismantled quietly in ways that you and I might not have even noticed. It's on us to put them back up. So unsave your credit card information, delete, or even better, unsubscribe from those marketing emails. Make your social media time intentional. Don't just scroll when you have a free moment. Like, if you must be on it, schedule it. Like, be intentional about it. Uh, I always try to wait 24 hours before buying anything. So if I have the thought in my head that my daughter needs new shorts for camp, and that's a real life example happening next week, instead of just going to my favorite site with their 2-day or even faster shipping, instead of doing that, I take a breath, I take a beat. I say, okay, my daughter needs shorts. Is there a way for me to acquire them on by some other means than Amazon? Can we borrow shorts? Do I have my older daughter's bins of clothes in the attic? Can I bring those down and look in there first? Can I, thrift? Can I reach out to my buy nothing group in my neighborhood? I'm willing to bet there's another girl this around my daughter's age who has shorts that she just grew out of and is willing to give us shorts. So it's that kind of thing. Like, make buying the last resort as instead of the knee-jerk reaction. The knee-jerk reaction is what we've been trained to do. But guess what? We're all really smart. We've all got big brains. We can undo that training with a little bit of intention.
I love that so much. Instead of buying being the first thing we do, say, I'm going to figure this out without having to buy. And you're right. We have a amazing buy nothing Facebook group in my town where everyone's just happy to give their stuff away. And we take pictures of thanks so much. Here's my kid wearing it, or here's me using it, whatever it is. And it really is a nice community. And it's so true though. We're just so quick to, all right, let me go run to the store and get it. So it's also, it kills so many birds with one stone. It helps your pocketbook. It helps the environment. You're feeling more in control of the decisions or your purchasing power. So while we wrap up, what is your favorite example of a small swap or habit that saves both money and the planet?
Anytime you decide to not buy new, you're making a really great choice for your wallet, your bottom line, and also for the planet, right? Because buying new requires not only a financial premium, you're paying the most for a new item, but the planet is also having to give up resources, water, precious metals, uh, carbon in the sense of carbon being released in the sense of that item being shipped to you, plastic being manufactured to wrap the item and package the item and send it to your doorstep. So anytime you decide to not buy new, you're doing a great thing for everybody. Now, of course, so many powers that be do not want us to embrace secondhand, want us to not borrow, want us to not thrift, want us to not embrace free secondhand items, right? Because there's no money to be made. They can't get our money when we do those actions. And so I encourage everybody who's listening to step away from the stigma, untangle yourselves from the stigma of, oh, new is, or secondhand is dirty, or secondhand is used, or, oh no. That is a mindset that's first of all incorrect, and second of all has been propagated not for our interest. We live in a world of abundance, our country of abundance at least, in which there is way more stuff than there are people who want the stuff. I'm talking clothes, I'm talking electronics, I'm talking appliances, I'm talking home goods, I'm talking furniture. You name the category, there's plenty of it already in existence. We do not need to make more. We do not need to spend our money on more. And so when you ask about a habit that satisfies the wallet and, helps the planet and is minimalist, I would say just take a few minutes if you have that, again, knee jerk, unconscious um, resistance towards secondhand stuff. Like, take a minute and untangle that. And I'll say too here, Shari, I grew up in the 80s. My family was not well off by any means. I grew up in a single mother household. And yet we never, ever accepted secondhand. We never thrifted. We always had new, even if the new stuff was like cheap Walmart junk, essentially. It was always new because even 40 years ago, the myth that secondhand is bad or dirty or for a different type of person, or I don't even know what the myth is, but even then it was propagated. And so to go back to what you said earlier in our conversation about how we've been trained to buy, I would update that to say we've been trained to buy new. New is best. And so I would encourage all of us to think, well, again, who is that benefiting? Is it benefiting us? Like, if I could get the blender that I need from my neighbor who doesn't ever use their blender for $0, that's definitely benefiting me. It's definitely benefiting the planet. It's not necessarily benefiting Verilux or whatever the brand is of blenders, but new is not best for you and me.
And we started our conversation on your show when I mentioned in my limited free time I like Grand Millennial, and you're like, well, what is that? And it's pretty much if you take things from your grandma's house, but also I like it because the furniture's nicer, the antiques, it's made better. So even if we think new is better, it actually isn't. It's not as good quality. It's not going to last as long. It's not even made with real wood. It's like particle board, right? If we're talking furniture, we have to buy a table, we have to put it together ourselves. It's not even better stuff. And you're right, generational, like our parents would never buy anything used or secondhand, or like the idea of Facebook Marketplace. It's like, oh, really? Oh, I'm not buying someone else's stuff. And it's like, it could be it could be never have been used. It could have been sitting in a house, never touched on, never sat in, never, but that's so interesting. I wonder where that came from. Secondhand isn't good enough, but it's like, if you just look at the quality of it, something used versus something new, quality is going to be so much better if you purchase it. It was made 25 years, 30 years ago.
That also is intentional. Like the rise of fast fashion and fast furniture, again, that's designed to satisfy a lower price point. Like, who can say no to a dining room table that's $300? But it's made to break. It's literally designed to break so that in 2 years you buy another table for another $300. And look, in 4 years they got $600 out of you. Like, it's all very intentional. And sure, your grandmother's dining room set, it may be dark mahogany wood and it may have, you know, very ornate legs that are out of style. But guess what? You can strip that table. You can paint it a lighter, more in fashion color. And then you have a mahogany table that's going to last beyond your lifetime and maybe into your children's lifetimes. And that right there is conscious consumption personified.